About unit fractions. Remember, a unit fraction is a fraction with a numerator or the top number of 1 and a denominator of anything. So today we will be working on drawing fraction bars to represent and show fractions. Just to review, remember the numerator, the top number of the fraction, that tells me how many pieces of the fraction that we have. The denominator, or the bottom number, that represents the whole fraction, how many pieces it is broken up into. So we will get started drawing fraction bars today. So on your piece of paper and with your pencil, I would like you just to draw something like this. So you have a rectangle. A rectangle. And it does not have to be perfect, but the best that you can to make a rectangle. Okay. And I also want a line up above. And this represents, right, one whole, because it is not divided into a number of parts yet. Okay, so right now we have one whole. So how could we use this fraction bar to represent 1/4? How could we use this fraction bar to show 1/4? What do we need to do to our bar? Okay, go ahead, Tilly. What do we need to do to this bar to represent 1/4?
We divide it into 4/4.
Very good. We divide it into 4/4, 4 equal parts. Okay, so remember, this bottom number, our denominator, this number is going to tell me how many pieces we're going to divide our fraction bar into. Okay, so, and I'm going to pause because we have some people joining us. So, all right, so we were just talking about drawing fraction bars to represent fractions. Again, remember, a unit fraction is a fraction with a numerator of 1. So the top number in a unit fraction is always 1. Okay, and this tells me that we have just one piece of our fraction. Okay, our bottom number, the denominator, that tells us how many parts, equal parts, we need to divide our fraction bar into. So those of you that just joined us, today we're going to be drawing fraction bars to represent fractions. So if you do not already have a fraction bar drawn, please go ahead and do that, and I'll model how to do that again. Just bear with me here. So a fraction bar, we kind of went over this yesterday. You just need a rectangle, a long rectangle. Okay, and then above our rectangle, we're going to draw a line segment. Okay, because that line segment represents one whole. Okay, right now we have one whole, and Tilly told us that if we want to use a fraction bar to represent 1/4, okay, we need to divide our fraction bar into 4 equal parts. Okay, so our denominator, the bottom number, is going to tell us how many equal parts we need to divide our fraction bar into. Okay, so a strategy that I like to use is, if it is an even number, I can always divide it in half, divide by 2. Okay, so on your, using your fraction bar, okay, we need to divide it into 4 equal pieces. So what I'm going to do, and follow along please, take your pencil, divide your fraction bar in half, and then we're going to divide those halves in half. Okay, so now we have a fraction bar that each one of those will represent 1/4. Each of those smaller pieces represents 1/4. Thumbs up if you are here. You've divided your fraction bar into 4 equal parts. Okay, so each of these smaller pieces represents 1/4. Okay, are we good? Okay, so how can I use this fraction bar to represent 3/4? What can I do to show 3/4 on this fraction bar? Ronan, go ahead.
We shaded 3.
Very good, right? We would shade in 3 parts. So everybody go ahead and shade 1, 2, 3. So this is what we worked on yesterday. So how many fourths make 3/4? If I want to see a sum of unit fractions, what we worked on yesterday. I see Danny, go ahead.
3.
Right,
Two
so
fourths.
yes, we're going to add 1/4 3 times to give us 3/4. Very good. Okay. So that is a sum, that's showing a sum of unit fractions. Good. How could we use this fraction bar, so this same fraction bar, to represent 6/8? So how could we use this same fraction bar but represent 6/8? What could we do here? Go ahead, Jack. Did you have your hand up?
Yeah, you could split all the every of the boxes into split them in half.
Good, right? We could, so everybody will go ahead and do that. So we will split this fraction bar that we have, and we'll just split all of them in half. Okay, so now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now our fraction bar shows 1/8. Okay, so now we have 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8, 1/8 plus 1/8 equals 6/8. Good. Okay, so all we did there was we just split the fraction bar that we already had in half again to make 8s. Good. Okay, so any questions on that? No, so today, I'm not sure if, it looks like we are just, they have the fraction bars drawn for us already. So it looks like we just have to show each of those fractions by shading. So let's take a look at our class activity pages today. And you can put that extra piece of paper to the side. Okay, so looking at our class activity page, it says shade each fraction bar to show the fraction. First, divide the fraction bar into the correct unit fractions. Okay, so remember, this bottom number, the denominator, is going to tell me how many equal pieces we need to divide our fraction bar into. And then the top number, that shows us how many pieces need to be shaded. Okay, so numbers 1 and 2 were already done for you. Any questions on that? Okay, so the first one was divided into 6 equal parts, and they shaded 1/6. The second one, 2/3, we divided the fraction bar into 3 equal pieces, and we shaded 2 of the parts. Okay, so now let's look at number 3, 7/8. So how many equal pieces do we need to divide our fraction bar into? Aubrey, go ahead. How many equal pieces do we need to divide that fraction bar into?
8 pieces.
Awesome, 8 pieces. So is 8 an even number? Thumbs up if you think 8 is an even number that can be divided by 2. Yes, so I can start out by finding half. Okay. And just like with the fourths, I can do half of those ones, and then half again to have 8 equal parts. Okay, and again, just try your very best to make 8 equal parts. That's what's important about these fractions, is that it's equal parts. Okay, so now how many pieces are we going to shade to represent 7/8? How many parts do we need to shade to represent 7/8? Go ahead, Ronan.
7.
Awesome, seven pieces. Okay, so go ahead. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, so each of those smaller pieces makes 1/8, and we have to add 7 of them to make 7/8. Any questions? Okay, let's move on to number 4. We have 2/4. So how many equal pieces do we need to divide this fraction bar into? How many equal pieces? Okay, Tilly, go ahead. Number 4, how many equal parts?
4 equal pieces.
Very good, 4 equal pieces. So is 4 an even number?
Yes.
Yes, so we can divide our bar in half. So find half, and then we'll divide that one in half. Okay, so the best that you can to make equal parts. And how many pieces do we need to shade to represent 2/4? Aubrey, go ahead.
2.
And what number did you look at? Or do you remember the word?
The top number.
Very good, and we call that the numerator. Very good. So the numerator tells us how many pieces we need to shade. The denominator tells us how many pieces we need to divide our fraction bar into. Any questions? Can we go to the next 2? Okay, I'm just going to clear this and scroll. Okay, good. So looking at number 5, we're going to use this fraction bar to show 5/6. So what number am I going to look at to determine how many equal parts we need? Go ahead, Aubrey.
6.
Very
Equal
good.
parts.
6 equal parts, so the denominator. Okay, and there's a couple ways to do this. I can divide 6 by 3. So I could first split my bar into thirds and then split those ones in half. Or I could split it in half and then split it in 3 different parts. So I'll try my best to do thirds and then just split those ones in half. Okay, so I should have 6 equal parts. How many pieces do we need to shade to represent 5/6? Go ahead, Tilly.
5.
Awesome, 5. So everybody, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, each one of those smaller pieces represents 1/6. If I add 5 of them, we get 5/6. Very good. Okay, the last one, number 6. Number 6, how many equal parts do we need for number 6? Go ahead, Jack.
8.
8, nice job. And what strategy did you use to split it into 8 equal parts?
I just went down the middle and then put 3 on each. No, I don't know actually.
That's okay. You're on the right track, right? So he split it down the middle. And then he, right, we did half of half. The best that you can to make them equal. Okay, and then how many parts are we going to shade to represent 3/8? Go ahead and show me with your fingers. Hold them up. How many pieces are we going to shade to represent 3/8? Awesome. Number 3. So we will shade 3 of them. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, nice job. Any questions? Okay, so this is how we use fraction bars to represent fractions. Go ahead and turn the page. And now we're going to use number lines to show fractions. And this is the same as using a fraction bar, but we're just not using a rectangle. We're just using a line to represent the fraction. Okay, so let me turn the page here. Okay, so what do we notice about these lines? What do you notice about the lines? How are they similar to a fraction bar? What do you notice, Ronan? Go ahead.
There is a, where are those? It's the same. It has it goes up in the same numbers, like
break it up the same.
1 and 3 and 2 and 3, like that.
Good, so he's noticing similar numbers. So I want, and you can see on number 7 as an example, you see how it's, right, we still have a fraction bar, and each, right, we have broken it into 6 equal parts, right? Each dash, if I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I still have 6 parts that we divided it into. Okay, so if this first one represents a 6th, okay, the next one will be 2 sixths, 3 sixths, 4, 5 sixths, and 1 makes 6 sixths. Okay, so anytime we have a numerator and a denominator that is the same, so 6 over 6, 5 over 5, 3 over 3, that equals 1 whole, okay, or the number 1. So same with the fraction bars. We're still looking at that bottom number, the denominator, and that's going to tell us how many equal parts we need to divide the line into. Okay, so again, number 8 was done for us. So we had, I'll show mine up here. So this bottom number is going to tell me how many equal parts we need to divide our line into. Okay, 1 is going to be the fraction 3 over 3. So now I just need to divide my line into 3 equal parts the best that I can. Okay, so this first line would represent 1/3. This second line would represent 2/3. Okay. So let's go ahead and take a look at number 9. So again, the bottom number is going to tell us how many equal parts we need to divide our line into. So to represent 7/8, how many equal parts do we need to divide our line into? For 7/8, how many equal parts do we need? I think I see Danny's hand up. Danny, go ahead. How many equal parts will we need?
7,
Look at our bottom number.
8.
8, okay? Our bottom number is going to tell us how many equal parts. So what I like to do is I like to label that number 1 as a fraction. Okay, so what will this 1 look like as a fraction? What will that look like as a fraction? I see Tilly. Go ahead, Tilly.
8/8.
Very good. So everybody, under the number 1, we're going to make it 8/8. Okay, that represents our whole number. So now I'm just going to go, oh, I see Aubrey has a question. Go ahead, Aubrey.
I don't really have a question, but the phone died, and I don't know which page we're on.
Okay, we are on still the class activity page. 7-2, it says 214 at the bottom, page number.
Okay. Got it.
Got it? Okay. All right, so now that we have our 1 labeled as 8/8, we're just going to divide this line into 8 equal parts. So again, half, and I'll split those ones in half. And then I'll split those ones in half. Okay. So this first line, what does this first line represent? What fraction would that be? Go ahead, Jack.
1/8.
Very good. 1/8. Okay, so 1/8. And then I'm just counting. Okay, so the next one would be 2/8. Then we have 3/8, 4/8, 5, 6/8, and 7/8. Okay. So does everybody see how it's similar to using fraction bars? We're just getting rid of that rectangle part and getting rid of dividing it into the smaller squares, but now we're just using the dashes to represent the unit fractions. Okay, so now we need to locate 7/8. So different ways to do that, if you just want to put a dot over the top of that line or a star above, wherever, just so that I can see where 7/8 is on that number line. Okay, any questions? Can we move on? Okay, here we go. I just need to clear and scroll down. Okay, so number 10, we have 2/4. So I'm looking at this bottom number, and that's going to tell me how many equal parts we will have. And before, what I like to do is I like to label that number 1 as a fraction before I start dividing my line. So in this case, number 1, what would that look like as a fraction? Similar to the last one that we did. So what would the number 1 look like as a fraction? I see Ronan, is your hand up?
I was just stretching.
Okay. Danny, I see your hand up. Go ahead, Danny.
It would be 4/4.
Perfect. Very good. 4/4. So underneath the number 1, we'll write 4/4. Okay. So this is like saying I have 4 out of 4 pieces. So I have 1 whole. Okay. So now our denominator is 4. So we're going to divide this line into 4 equal parts. Okay. So what I like to do with fourths is divide it in half. Then divide those ones in half. Okay, so now let's go ahead and label those pieces that we did. So if I'm at 0, the next one would be, what would the first dash be? Go ahead, Tilly, what would that first dash be?
1/4.
Very good, 1/4. Okay, good.
Sorry.
Okay, the second one. Go ahead, Jack.
2/4.
Good, 2/4. And the next one, right, we're just counting. Oh, hang on. Okay, go ahead, Willow.
4/4.
So
Oh
we're
no,
at
3/4.
there you go, 3/4. There you go. Nice, good job. Okay, good. So now we just need to locate, now that we have it labeled, we just need to locate 2/4. Okay, so again, put that little circle on top, or if you even want to circle it, okay, to show me where 2/4 is on the number line. Okay, any questions? All right, let's look at number 11. So we have 5/6. Okay, so right away, what I like to do is label that whole number as a fraction. So what would our whole number look like as a fraction? Go ahead, Aubrey.
6, 6.
Awesome, good
6,
job.
6.
Yep, so label this as 6/6. Okay, now I'm looking at my denominator, so we're going to divide it into 6 parts. So half, and then here we go. Good. Okay, so now please label these dashed lines up to 6/6. So we're just counting. So we'd have 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, and 5/6. Okay, and then go ahead and locate 5/6. So however you want to do that, circle it, star it, just show me where it is. Okay. All right, and lastly, number 12, 3/8. So I would say our first step, let's label that number 1 as a fraction. Go ahead, Jack.
8/8.
Perfect, 8/8, nice job. Okay, and then let's divide it. So we're looking at the denominator. What I like to think about, denominator, divide. They both start with D. So D and D. Okay, so this tells me how many pieces we're going to divide it into. So we need 8 parts. So half, 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 and then I divide those ones in half. Okay, and then we'll just label each of those dashes. So our first one, we'd have 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, and so on until I get to 8/8. Okay, and then it looks like we need to locate 3/8. So again, circle, star it, however you want to show me. Okay, any questions? Okay, I will go over the homework and remembering pages. So if you want to get those out and we can go over directions. Can I get a thumbs up if I can erase this and look at the homework? Thumbs up. Hey, thank you. Here we go. Alrighty. So the homework page, it looks like you need to shade each fraction bar to show the fraction. First, divide the fraction bar into the correct unit fractions. So remember, look at the denominator to divide. Number 1 was done for us. So we need to divide it into 4 equal parts. And then the top number is how many I'm going to shade. Okay, so your first step is to divide it into the correct unit fractions and then shade. Any questions on those ones? Okay, 4 through 6. So now we're looking at a number line. So again, right, this is how many equal parts I need. So what I like to do is label that number 1 as a fraction and then divide it into those parts. And remember the best that you can, but right, that does not represent 3 equal parts. Okay, so the best that you can to make 3 equal parts and then label each dash. Okay, and then circle it, star it, just show me where it is. Okay, any questions on that page? Good. So remember, look at that denominator. To divide, label that whole number as a fraction. All right, let's look at the remembering side. Okay, remembering. We need to solve each problem. Label your answers, please. So it looks like we have some story problems. Just make sure you're labeling with the correct label. Remember, we usually find that after the word many, how many or how much. Okay, 3, we're talking about angles. So remember, we have 3 types of angles. We have right angles, acute angles, and obtuse angles. So right angles, right, are the angles where we can see that square in the corner. So we're looking for angles that are smaller than a right angle. Okay, so, and you might have more than one choice here. Looks like we'll have 2 options for that one. Okay, any questions on the angles? All right, let's look at number 4. So this is what we did yesterday. So you need to write a sum to represent the part of the fraction bar that you shaded, then write it as 1 fraction. Okay, so they divided it into 5 equal parts. You need to shade 3 parts and then show me the sum of unit fractions. Okay, so each of those would represent 1/5. So how many fifths do we need to add to make the 3 shaded parts? Okay, so go ahead and just show me that. And then stretch your thinking. If you can, remember, push yourself. You need to write a word problem to match the shaded fraction bar. So I know that's kind of hard to tell, but there's 3 pieces that are shaded. Okay, so how could you write a word problem to match the shaded fraction bar? Okay, and if you can't tell, and if you want to shade on your paper, there's 3 out of 4 pieces shaded. Okay, any questions? Okay, so that ends our